Hey guys, welcome back to We Watch Movie. I am Mike, and today, finally, in a very, very late video, we are breaking down every difference between the Halloween Kills novelization and the movie. Don't blame me, I only read when I poop, and a lot of times I have my phone with me. So basically, from the time Halloween Kills came out until now, reading this is how many poops I took where my phone was dead. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to borrow it. But yeah, I just went through and I highlighted every difference that I noticed. I transcribed them into Microsoft Word, and I'm going to break them down with you now. Let's fucking go! Let it burn!
Here comes that white-faced fucker, an asshole like no other. He's a big old piece of shit. Wants to stab your sister's tits cause he's a white-faced fucker. Loomis can't recover. Dr. Challenge drunk again, sleeping with your sister's friends.
Do you want to know about the darkness?
I said, God damn.
Now, this book was written by Tim Wagner, and what's really cool about these novelizations is A, they don't do them that often anymore, so it's just cool as shit that we get them. B, what's cool is that sometimes you get a different perspective. You get what the characters are thinking. You get, in a way, what's going on in Michael Myers' head. So starting with the prologue, Michael's thoughts as he's looking up from the basement to Laurie and Allison and Karen. Here's what he's thinking. It says, "The face of she who will not die. The shape is incapable of feeling anything as he gazes into her eyes, but something stirs inside of him, a need. For what? Completion? Closure? Perhaps. Or maybe it's simply a need to see the life fade in those eyes, those stubborn eyes, to watch them become cold and empty like his." Now this is interesting because it points out the fact that Michael does know who she is, at least. Now, there's a bunch of conversation that's been going on between these movies of, is Michael still after her, or did Sartain just place him there? He doesn't feel anything, but he needs her dead, and he doesn't even know why. It's completion or closure. Just an interesting idea behind at least what this writer thinks is going on in Michael's eyes. Now, the number two difference between the book and the movie is that Hawkins actually mentions at one point Michael's parents. He says that nobody knows where they went. He's like, one day they just were gone. He assumed that it was the pain of having one child kill another child was too much to live in Haddonfield and bear the memory of it all. And he also mentions that Halloween children turned his parents into folklore. They said that they would lock Michael in the attic and they abused him until he went crazy. Or they said that he was possessed by a demon, and then anybody that crossed the threshold of the house ended up possessed by the demon as well. Now, this is just probably extra dialogue that was taken out that was maybe originally in the script that they didn't add in the movie. But you could say, if you wanted to deep down inside of that conspiracy bag, I just poked myself in the dick, you could say that, hey, maybe Michael's parents, as some people have been saying, are going to have some sort of something to do with Halloween Ends in some fashion. I have heard that rumor. I have heard that theory. It doesn't make the least sense in the world. I mean, they haven't been around. That has to make him feel some sort of way. He always goes back and stares out of that fucking window. Maybe he's waiting for his mommy and daddy to come home. I don't know, probably not, but it's fun to talk about shit. Speaking of that very fucking window, that dirty ass window that someone needs to get their asses up in Windex, the cop who Michael Myers kills in the flashback scene, he actually notes in the book when he walks into the room, he realizes that every window in the Myers home is boarded up except for that window. And he can see splinters on the floor where Michael had gone in and forcibly ripped out the wood out of that window so that he could look out of it. Once again, pointing out that there's something fucking weird about that window, man. Number 4, the window comes back into play again. When McCabe is looking out the window, it mentions that because of the grime on the other side of the window, he could only see his own reflection. Now, the book and the movie go back and forth between this, as we'll find out. Some people see the reflection. In a couple cases, people start to see something. It says here, at first, he could only see himself because of the grime on the other side of the window. But it says, eventually, he thought he saw something out there, an indistinct shape that he couldn't quite make out. What Michael had been looking at all those years ago, what he'd been looking at tonight, maybe, and then Michael fucking attacks him. I don't know what it is, but you'll see later in this, someone else looks out the window and starts to see something before they are attacked as well. And you know what I'm talking about. It's fucking Karen. Number 5 difference. Vanessa and Marcus. You see them at Mick's bar. They're coming from someplace. They're talking about hating their boss. All the stuff that was going on with that. That character is a character named Mathis, who's actually been hired for Halloween Ends. So the character will have something to do with Halloween Ends. But in the book, it explains they came from Mathis's house, who was their boss, and who recommended that it'd be funny if she dressed it up. If she dressed up as a sexy nurse and he dressed up as the doctor. They came to his house and it was a fucking orgy. They were both pissed. He was like, seriously, whose boss invites them over to their house for like a fucking gangbang? Mathis is a pervert. Mathis is going to be in Halloween Ends. Mathis is probably going to die. We'll see what happens. Difference number 6, the bartender at Mick's bar is actually different. His name is Mick, and he's a beefy white guy in his early 30s with shaggy blonde hair, a goatee, and intricate sleeve tattoos. He also gets pissed off at the point later on when Tommy goes to grab the bat from him, old Huckleberry, and he's like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, my dad gave me that when I won the championship. And Tommy looks at him and says, imagine how proud I'll be when it's covered in Michael Myers' blood. That line was also taken out. So just a couple tiny differences with the bartender there. Don't know why. Number 7, they paint a little bit of picture on why Michael was actually able to escape the house that night when it was on fire. A fireman is thinking to himself in the book on his way out to Laurie's house that, hey, well, older houses tend to burn slower. So he's like, I'm sure whoever's in the house will have more of a chance to get out. It gave him a little bit of ease. Because apparently older houses, the way they're made, they just burn slower. So just a little tiny extra reason why Michael was able to escape, had that extra time. Old houses burn slower. Didn't fucking know that. Thanks, Home Depot. Get it done. Speaking of the house fire, the number 8 difference is, you know the scene where the fireman's reaching out for his friend, right? And Michael reaches up and grabs his hand and he pulls him through the hole. In this one, the fireman can't see very well and he grabs Michael's hand and he thinks that's his firefighter friend. He actually laughs to himself because he's like, oh my, what a strong grip you have. And then he pulls him up. He pulls Michael up in the hole and he looks at him. Michael's got the other dude's halogen and kills him with it. So that's one difference. I imagine I can totally see why they decided not to film it that way, because it's kind of weird. Like if the guy just saw Michael, why would he help him up? Because they had to like show that he was confused and disoriented. Probably just a lot easier to film it this way. Number 8. Are we on number 8? Should we even keep counting? Why are we keeping track? I feel like I'm talking to my wife about what we want to eat for lunch. She never fucking knows. It's like decoding the fucking Da Vinci Code, trying to figure out what this woman wants to eat. Anyways, this one's pretty cool. Laurie hallucinates in the hospital. In this one, she's being worked on. She's unsure what's going on. It explains that she's actually cool with death because she still thinks Myers is dead. So she's like, it's the first peace she's felt since she was 17 years old. And then right then she hears people working on her. She can hear the doctors. She comes to, and it's not, she expects to see doctors and nurses, but it's Michael fucking Myers. It's not just Michael Myers. It's like 12 goddamn Michael Myers standing around her, and they're all holding tools. They're holding, it says, a scalpel, a bone saw, a bone chisel, a trocar, pliers, scissors. The instruments are old, blood-stained, and rusty. And this is why I won't go bungee jumping in Mexico. They just don't have the regulations. If you know what movie that's from, comment down below. They go to work on her. She starts screaming, and then she wakes up from the dream, which is a pretty fucking dope scene. I really wish if I could have got anything from this entire novel, I'm pretty sure that that's the scene I would have wanted. That would have just been cool as hell to see. They probably figured we have to make 12 goddamn masks to make that scene work, but that's my favorite. Let me know down below, by the way, when you get to your favorite difference, what you would have wanted. I think that one's mine. Number 9, one little bit of extra explanation in
Evil dies tonight!
Evil dies tonight!
and where it came from. Now you see in Halloween Kills where Tommy puts the money in the thing that says Love Lives Today or whatever, the little donation slot. In the book, before Marion just stands up awkwardly and goes, "Evil dies tonight!" The difference here is when Tommy puts the money into the slot, he actually reads the caption on there and he says, "Love lives today, people." And then Marion stands up, fist to the sky, and goes, "But evil dies tonight! This is our Independence Day!" Number 10. Fucking 10! Tavoli gets a backstory in the book. He gets a very detailed backstory that he did not get in the movie whatsoever. Now, it kind of sees things from his point of view, and goddamn, Tim Wagner did such a good job on this book. He really did, because he's not totally, like, you're not in his mind, but the way he even writes what Tavoli is thinking, it's so childlike. You get a real essence of just how innocent but also fucking buku nuts he was. And basically he was just scared. But it also mentions that he stole an umbrella earlier that day, and he like feels bad for it. He's like, I didn't want to get off the bus. The bus crash happened and I was scared, so I ran. And he was like, I missed my umbrella that I had at Smith's Grove that they showed him with. So I saw one outside of like a flea market store and I took it, and I just thought since nobody yelled at me that I was destined to have it. And then my tummy hurt. So when I saw a delivery driver leave his car unlocked, he shouldn't leave his car unlocked, by the way. That's very not safe. I was hungry, so I took the pizza, and the only reason he was in Vanessa's car is because he liked the color fucking blue, and it was a blue Ford Fiesta. It's kind of goddamn cute when you think about it. He gets in her car just because he wanted somewhere to eat his pizza in fucking peace, man. That's the only reason he was in her car. But there's a sinister side to Tavoli too, and that's why he was in Smith's Grove. You see, his parents, his mom and dad, who he hears in his head talking to him as his medicine starts to wear off from not being at Smith's Grove, and they're saying, you're worthless, you're a piece of shit, all this stuff like that. And he actually brings up Sartain. He's like, Sartain told him, he was like, hey, you were abused horribly as a child, and your parents used rope to torture you in the most inhumane ways I can't even speak of. They were very, very clever with how they used the rope to torture you, which just sounds really dirty and fucked up to me. But anyways, what happened was Tavoli ended up killing his parents. He murdered his parents, and the sight of any kind of rope whatsoever, sends him into a murderous fucking rage. Number 11, Allison has some interesting thought, and some of these, you know, they're not differences, but they're just stuff that was omitted, you know, because it's like thoughts or whatever. Allison has a really interesting thought about Sartain in the Halloween Kills novel. She wondered if he was a monster too, or maybe Sartain had begun their therapeutic relationship as a mentally healthy man, and over the years he'd become contaminated by... You make me come. Over the years, he'd become contaminated by Michael's insanity, infected, as if Michael was some sort of disease. She now wondered if she was now infected by that same disease. If they all were, her grandmother, her mother, and herself, it wasn't a comfortable thought. Number 12, Laurie also says something to this effect. Now, this is mentioned several times in here, and by the way, I'm going to take this time to say make sure that you are subscribed and click the bell, because another video that I'm doing out of this are 10 things that Halloween Kills novel says about what's going to happen in Halloween Ends. There's some really interesting stuff. This is one of the things I'll dive into deeper. Make sure you're subscribed. We're also going to rank our top 10 zombie films Friday Night Live. So make sure you're subscribed, click the bell so you get notified when we make videos, because YouTube doesn't like us because we say things like cock, shit, fuck, and they won't tell you when we make videos if you don't. So please do that. All right, so, but Laurie also, number 12, there where we're at? Laurie also says something about the whole infection of Michael Myers, which we'll get more into in that video. When she realizes that Sartain was the one to hurt Hawkins, is further proof, as if she needed any, that Michael's evil was like a disease. Anyone who spent too much time around him had to be careful not to become infected. The real Dr. Loomis had managed it, but Sartain, it seemed, had been a far weaker man. That's because Dr. Loomis is a fucking badass. Real men drink coffee with a straw, Dad! Number 13, going back to the fire. Not on purpose because I got my notes confused. Going back to the fire. Just a cool fucking line from the book. When the Shape kills the firefighter, remember this time he's on level 2. He kills the firefighter and he throws his corpse down and it lands on top of the other firefighter. The Shape forgets about them both the instant their corpses are out of his sight. In his world there is only meat, and meat is divided into two types, that which moves and that which doesn't. Once he transformed the former into the latter, it ceases to exist for him. Again, just some cool ass, dark, fucked up insight from Tim Wagner, and I like it, Tim, you son of a bitch. Let's get a steak. Another spot here at number 14 where Michael actually acknowledges that he knows, at least the book for him acknowledges that he knows who Laurie is and remembers. It says in this excerpt, right after the firefighter scene when he's walking out the house, it says the smoke is too thick for him to see well. Plus, it makes his good eye water. Something about Michael going, my one good fucking eye. But he says, but he doesn't need vision to find his way through the house. Her house, in all caps. He is a thing of darkness, and wherever there is an absence of light for whatever reason, he is home. You were merely molded by it. I was born in it. Number 15, we get more Lindsay background in this one. She is a florist, by the way. Her flower shop is called Flower Works. She likes flowers because they represent both life and death. She has 2 failed marriages. She has bad anxiety and a son who lives in California who barely talks to her. I wonder if they stopped talking because they got in a fight about going to Yosemite. I'm going to Yosemite. Number 16, Tommy's anger is way more prevalent in this one. His shrink tells him that he redirects fear as a way to attack before being attacked. He's gotten in trouble several times, lost several jobs over his temper. The whole thing with Michael just fucked him up a whole lot. The whole bird whistling joke that Lonnie tells at the beginning of it is actually true. He was sitting in class one day and he was about to have a panic attack. He looked outside, he saw a bird, and he just thought, hey, that bird's fucking lucky. That bird never met Michael goddamn Myers. I wish I was that fucking bird. He was like Mickey Rourke in Iron Man 2. Bird. I want bird. But he started to whistle to himself as the bird, and since then that just calmed his anxiety and his panic attacks, and it made him deal with his anxiety a lot, which is actually really interesting. It paints a lot more, the book paints a lot better of a character, in my opinion, than the movie by itself did. I think Tommy really needed that extra exposition because he was sort of in the movie just walking around with a baseball bat saying shit like, "I'm gonna swing old Huckleberry here." What's very interesting about Tommy here that they don't show in the movie is he has a fucking, he has the Cult of Thorn tattoo on him. Now, it's only because he became obsessed with Halloween and studying these things, but he actually has the Halloween 6 rune thorn on him, and he would rub it whenever he got like upset or anxiety fueled. But it makes total sense why they would take that out of the movie, because you know if we saw that, there would be 1,000 theories about Halloween ends and here comes the Cult of Thorn, and they'd have to come out and literally be like, guys, the Cult of Thorn's not going to be in the movie. Hey, maybe it fucking is. I don't know. It's not. Number 17, I can't count. We are also going to get more Lonnie backstory in this book. In the book, Lonnie wrote a book about the events that happened on Halloween. They mention it several times. Lori interviewed for the book because he handled it all so respectively, and it helped Lonnie handle his stuff. He became obsessed with the occult and the paranormal because he needed to understand how Michael Myers could exist in a world like this. And he also mentions at one point in the book that's not in the movie, when he's talking to Tommy and everybody, he's like, "I'll go with you as long as I'm the one that gets to kill him." He was like, "I'm tired of looking like the town fuck up. I'm tired of being the bully or being bullied." He's like, "I want to be known as the one that took Michael Myers out at the end of the day." And really, I understand why they took that out because it doesn't fit with the character we got in the movie. Lonnie is one of my favorite characters in the movie. I thought he was the most natural of the whole group in Halloween Kills to come back as a character. But it just mentions that his obsessions over the weird had branded him a weirdo in Haddonfield, and everybody looked at him as kind of like the weird town loser drunk. His wife left him over drinking, and his son didn't even believe his stories about Michael. He just thought he made him up about the book. So there's a lot more kind of tragic story to Lonnie in the book than you get in the movie. Number 18, Phil, you know, Sandra's husband, big dude, the guy from Rescue Me, Teddy from Rescue Me, with the big old duckbill platypus mask that's like, "Hey, it smells like Lucky Strikes from where I let your mom borrow it. Hey, there's a guy in the bathroom and he's wearing a monster mask." That guy, he actually puts up way more of a fight in the book. I like the scene a lot more in the book than I do in the movie. In the movie, Michael kills him, he's dead. Michael kills Sandra. Then he drags his body over and she's still alive, watching while Michael stabs him and does this little fucking art show. I'll show you this knife or this fucking knife. In the book, however, he gets up, he fights the urge to die because he wants to save Sandra. He bull rushes Michael, tackles him, throws his head into a cabinet, and actually takes a swing and punches him clear in the face. Michael takes the punch, turns around, looks at him. When he goes to swing again, though, Michael grabs his what the fuck is this thing called? Michael grabs his fist, turns him around, puts him down on the table, and slowly reaches his arm up behind his back until you hear it nastily fucking snap. Number 19, Lindsay's escape from the playground is actually explained. Now, in the movie, it's a little weird because she just shows up and she's got dirt and shit all over. You're like, "Hey, where the fuck you been, man? Did you go to Arby's? What happened?" In this, she found a bridge that she used to play with her son underneath, and she goes underneath the bridge, she hides under it, and she actually Predator Arnold Schwarzenegger style picks up mud and leaves and starts rubbing them on her face because the moon was so bright that she was afraid Michael would be able to see her, and she's trying to hide from him. So she rubs the mud and shit all over herself. In the book, Michael actually walks on top of the bridge she's under, and she can look up and see him through the crack, and he's playing with his dinghy a little bit. I made that part up, but she can actually see him through the crack. And then when he finally walks off, she's so goddamn relieved, but because he choked her out so hard and she had these injuries, she passes out. She comes to later on when they show up, but that's what happened kind of with Lindsay in that scene. Number 20, Karen also has a dream. She's back in the basement in the house as well, and her mom and her daughter are lying dead around her. She's looking at Michael and she's like, "Fucking take me. What are you waiting for?" And then all of a sudden the flames engulf her and Michael watches her as she burns to death. And then she wakes up and she goes, "Oh, fuck. Well, this is a nightmare too." Number 20, Lori has an interesting claim. When she's in the hospital, she tells Karen, and quote, "Let him come. Let him take my head as I take his. Maybe the only way he can die is if I die too. Let's get this nightmare over with. You and Allison shouldn't spend your lives running from the darkness I created." You'll notice a theme in the book that's not in the movie. Lori blames herself a little bit more in the book than she does in the movie for what happened. I don't know if that has anything to do with Halloween Ends or not, and they were trying to keep it hidden for Halloween Kills. I don't know, but I do know that they took several claims of Lori taking responsibility for Michael out of the movie, at least didn't put him in the movie, although they were in the book. But it's also interesting that she says, let him take my head as I take his. Could you imagine? Like fucking Cable Guy. Number 21, Big John and Little John, when they were hanging out watching TV, they happened to be watching the original Black Christmas. And funny enough, the book actually points out that they both agreed that the original was better than both the remakes. One of the remakes, by the way, was done by Blumhouse. Number 22, Karen actually has a memory of her mom explaining to her that moment where she saw Michael Myers take off his mask in the original Halloween film. You know, the one where he takes off his mask and he's all like googly eyed and shit like that. For a second, you just see like half his face and he's like, what the fuck? That scene. She explains it to her and she says, I saw him only for a couple seconds. What struck me was how empty his face looked. It was like a doll's face or a mannequin's. It had a semblance of humanity. The pieces were there, eyes, mouth, nose, ears. They might as well have been carved out of stone for all the expression they had. Now I think that's weird because if you go back and look at that scene, Tony Moran's face is clearly like, God damn, which is basically an explanation of what turns out to be his personality years later. But yeah, it's very odd. I think that's why they took it out, because he didn't look emotionless at all in that scene. He looked like someone just stuck a finger up his butt. Number 23, later on, when Laurie gives her whole spiel to Hawkins and she's saying it's all happening, Michael's masterpiece, she also adds the line, this chaos is what he created, but I brought it upon Haddonfield. That's just another instance of her putting blame on herself that you didn't see in the movie. Number 24, I've got to, if I end this on the right number, by the way, I will shit pants, man. There's no way I've kept the right number going this entire time. But number 24, in the flashback sequence, when Loomis puts the head to the gun of Michael Myers, when they're out in front of the house and all that shit happens, before that moment takes place, Officer Tobias runs up to Michael, rips his mask off in the book, and holds it up as all the cops start cheering. 25, very tiny detail, but very, very interesting. It says, when Michael was growing up, he was a boy who never smiled. His eyes never seemed to focus on anything in particular. Now, this is pre-killings, right? So in John Carpenter's movie, it seems like that kid just snaps out of fucking nowhere, and that's what's so interesting about it. There's no preface to it. Totally normal kid. I always find it interesting in these little tidbits when someone mentions something before that moment. Like they said, this boy never smiled and his eyes never seemed to focus on anything in particular. If it just kind of lends credence to this idea that there was something else there. It wasn't this one moment in particular where something snapped in his brain. Number 26, a little bit of explanation on why everybody was so eager to believe Tavoli was Michael. To us, a lot of us, that seems a little dumb because it's like we see Michael, like they don't look anything alike, height-wise, anything. Tavoli just... It was very confusing how everybody could confuse him for Michael Myers. But it says in the book that one of the reasons why there's not a lot of pictures of Michael is because after the events of 1978, he was taken straight to Smith's Grove. No mugshot, no trial. There was barely any pictures of him anywhere. There were actually photos that were taken by Smith's Grove employees who were paid under the table to snap quick photos of him. And Lonnie even used one of those photos for his book. But there wasn't a lot of pictures of Michael Myers out there because he was allegedly taken straight to Smith's Grove, no mugshot, anything after the trial, which is very weird how you explain that legally. We're going to have some questions to file with the Haddonfield Police Department. But let's be honest, they fucking suck at everything. Why wouldn't they suck at paperwork too? Number 27, it explains that Allison saw some shit when she was fighting Michael. When he's fighting her and he's holding the knife to her and she's looking at him face to face, being the fucking badass she was in that moment, it says that she looked into his good eye. I'm gonna cross my T's and dot my lowercase j's. What movie is that from? Comment down below. It says that there was something there. She saw something there. She didn't understand what it was. It was absolutely... She didn't understand what it was, but she only knew one thing, and that was absolutely, utterly inhuman, whatever she saw in Michael's eyes. Number 28, a huge soliloquy about Michael losing his mask. Right after Karen pitchforks him, and she takes his mask and runs off into the street like, I'm the gingerbread man, you'll never catch me. There's only one thing that's important to him now, regaining his face. He feels the cool night air on his skin and he finds the sensation revolting. His true face protects him from the outer world, helps him control the maelstrom that rages inside him. It gives him focus, purpose. Without it, he is diminished. With it, he is unstoppable. Now again, number 29, as he's chasing her, when he sees his mask laying in the street, he has another thought. It says this does not seem right to him, but there's no way he can resist the call of his face, nor does he wish to. Very interesting stuff that we'll get into. Number 30, another mask situation. Right after Michael gets the living fuck kicked out of him by Haddonfield, he puts on the mask, he has other thoughts. It says he draws in a deep breath, feeling the pain of his injuries recede. He is strong again. He is whole. This is as he puts the mask on. What the fuck? That mask, that window, that radio tower, it's an unholy triumvirate. Everyone's a suspect! 31. Now we see Karen in the movie look up at Judith's window and decide to go in. But it explains in the book, it says somehow in a way she didn't understand, that room was key to everything. Now this is what Karen's thinking. The book's not saying it's fact, but it is saying that she felt in her heart and soul, which is now hopefully in heaven, that she felt that room was the key to everything. So that's something interesting to think about as well. Number 32, the book confirms Tommy's death. Now I know a lot of us were like, yeah, he's fucking dead. Did you see Michael just beating the fuck out of his face with that bat? He's dead. There's no way. But we didn't actually see him die. So some people think maybe Tommy survived. Now, the book confirms he did not. It says, in the book, he only hits him one time, but it says Tommy is dead before he hits the ground. So at least at the point the book was made, Tommy was definitely dead. Number 33, Karen points out and notices in the book that Michael fucked Judith's room to shit. Now, he didn't just go in there and just come on everything.
You make me come.
He went in there and apparently she noticed the mattress had been slashed to ribbons, the furniture had been overturned, and there's a painting of a silly painting of a cat wearing an old dress that I guess the Little John and Big John had put up, that Michael had cut the eyes out of and slashed the mouth. She noticed that it looked like a jack-o'-lantern. So just something interesting. Michael went into Judith's room and apparently just fucked everything in there up out of some weird anger situation, which pretty on brand. Number 35, the book mentions when Karen walks towards the window, it says that she was pulled as if by some magnetic force. Another hint that there's something majestical, wonderful, and awful about that window. It says Karen closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and tried to feel what Michael must have felt when he stood here last. When she opened her eyes, she no longer saw her reflection. Instead, she saw the blood-covered face of a monster. So here's Karen in this book. Now we know that happened in the movie, but this is just a little extra window dressing on there for you. She's standing in there and she wanted to feel what Michael felt. She closes her eyes, trying to feel what he felt. She expects to see her reflection again. She opens her eyes and instead of her reflection, it's Michael covered in blood. I don't know what this means. It just could be two things. She's standing there thinking to herself, right? And having these thoughts, and that just happens to be the time Michael shows up, or is there more to it than that? I'm going to read it to you one more time. Karen closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and tried to feel what Michael must have felt when he'd stood here last. When she opened her eyes, she no longer saw her reflection. Instead, she saw the blood-covered face of a monster. It just seems like there may be more to that. I'm not smart enough to figure it out, Greg. Maybe you are. Number 35, the last difference between the book and the movie. The book actually tells us that everyone who said that he was looking at his own reflection was incorrect. At least the book says that. And then they almost tell us what Michael did see in the window. It says he does not see himself, though. He sees something else, something beyond, something greater. He sees, and then the fucking phone rings. God damn it, Lori. Did you have to call right fucking now? We were about to have the answers to the fucking universe. God damn it, I hate when people call during dinner or great movie reveals. Anyways, this is the scene that we got in the alternate cut where Lori is calling Karen's phone. It rings, takes Michael's attention off whatever he was looking at. He picks up the phone. If you don't know how this goes, he picks up the phone. Lori expects to hear Karen. She hears Michael breathing. She knows Karen's dead, and she says, "I'm coming for you, Michael." The book ends. So we almost... The book at least fucking teased what's driving Michael from that fucking window, okay? So much more to talk about in the next video where we're going to talk about all the things the book says that hints at what could happen in Halloween Ends. So again, make sure you're subscribed. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. Thank you guys for watching me struggle counting. Hopefully we got it right. And what do you guys think about all this? I love your fucking faces. If you're new to the channel, click that subscribe button. Get some goddamn wham up in you. You guys have a great goddamn day. What are you going to do on October 31st?
What are you gonna do on October 31st?
Here comes that white-faced fucker, an asshole like no other. He's a big old piece of shit. Wants to stab your sister's tits cause he's a white-faced fucker. Loomis can't recover. Dr. Challenge drunk again, sleeping with your sister's friends.
don't know about the darkness.
I said, God damn.
God damn you, Michael!
Ooh, I said, God damn.
A lot of people don't know the darkness that goes inside their hearts.
I said, God damn.
God damn you, Michael! What are you gonna do on October 31st?